Good morning and thanks so much for joining in. You're watching Ask Profit on NDTV Profit and my name is Alex Mathew. This show is geared towards getting you answers to all of your stock-related questions. And to that end, if you've got questions for us, then you can send them to us on any one of our social media platforms or indeed on the number that you can see on your screen right now. But before we get into those questions, let's very quickly take you through what's happening with the markets right now. And you have the Nifty 50 with this trading with gains and considerable gains at that of 650 plus points. It's not something that you say every day. And having said that, we're off the high point of the day. And despite the fact that we're trading with gains of about 2.9% or thereabouts, 150 points off the high point of the day. The broader market's also doing quite well. You have gains of about 2.3% or thereabouts or 2.6% or thereabouts for the mid-cap index, and about 1.8% for the small-cap index. What you will see, of course, with the small-cap index in particular, is that we are off the high point of the day. And I was looking at the overall contribution, the advanced decline ratio for the market as a whole, and you will notice that we have seen a bit of a narrowing of the gap. There are more declines than there were at the start of trade today. In fact, at one point, you had only about 110 declines on the NSE. Right now, of course, you have declines of as many as 525 stocks. Let's look at the key contributors to the move on the Nifty 50 today. And at one point, you had only one decline, but you have few more. They're not contributing too much to the downside right now. The likes of Eicher Motors as well as LTI Mindtree and Apollo Hospitals as well as HDFC Life losing ground. But look at the heavyweights on the top of the screen. You see the likes of Reliance Industries up significantly higher today. You have HDFC Bank, which was gaining quite considerably. It's off the high point of the day, but it's still gaining quite considerably. But you have the top gainers in the form of Power Grid Corporation of India, which is up over 10%. You have Adani Ports, which is up about 10% or thereabouts. You have NTPC, SBI, Shriram Finance, all gaining over 5%. Adani Enterprises as well, up as much as 6.3% in trade. Incidentally, the Adani group of stocks in trade today have gone back to the market capitalization that they had before the Hindenburg saga began on the 24th of January last year. And it's a market capitalization mark of 19.2 lakh crore rupees. A large part of that recovery has been contributed to by a couple of stocks, Adani Ports, which has moved from strength to strength, as well as Adani Power, which has gained quite a bit of ground. Now, let's also talk about the sectoral picture, because this is something that is almost unprecedented. You have all the sectors that are gaining in trade today. Some of them have moved off the high point of the day, but you have the PSUs that are doing particularly well, and understandably so. I haven't mentioned it so far, but we've been speaking about it all day today. It is the result of the exit polls, which are suggesting another victory, this time a landslide victory for the National Democratic Alliance, led by the BJP. And we're talking about the poll of polls, which is suggesting 361 or 362 seats or thereabouts for the NDA as a whole, which is better than the mark that they achieved in 2019. Let's get on board our experts. We've got Osho Krishan, who is a senior research analyst at Angel One, as well as Lancelot Dicuna, the CIO of ValueX Wealth Connect. Thank you so much to the both of you for taking the time. I will come to the both of you to try and gauge what you sense from the move today. Lancelot, we moved off the high point of the day, but we're still seeing considerable gains. For the longer term investors, how do you approach a market like this? I think a lot of people stood on the sidelines wondering what would happen, and we're seeing, we saw a gap up today. The question is, valuations were stretched even last week, but we're talking about gains of 3% today. What do you buy in this market?
I think, the proposition remains the same. One has to still search for value in areas that will afford value. So you have to look at sectors where there is earnings growth, but, they have not risen as much, and relative to their peers or relative to their past, let's say the 5-year trailing, price to earnings or price to book, whatever valuation parameters you use, they're not trading at a very high multiple, and hence then they can afford some value. Because you see, when you look at it from a longer term growth perspective, you are looking at valuations improving because economic growth will drive profits further, and that should increase the prices of these stocks. But at the same time, you are paying for 2 years growth already in advance, then the gains cannot be substantial from here. So one has to definitely look at pockets, like which haven't really done well and where there could be value. And in those sectors, in those companies, one should look at, increasing your allocation to equity at this point in time.
Okay, I'll circle back to you to find out what you think is a buy right now, individual names. Of course, this entire show is about individual names, but very quickly, Osho, I'm coming to you on the technicals for both the Nifty 50 index as well as the Nifty Bank, which incidentally has crossed that 50,000 mark in trade today. How much of this is sustainable?
Very good morning, Alex. Well, looking at the recent development, it's a perfect example of catapult effect, because last week we have seen market to be a bit tentative at higher levels, and after the exit polls, market since the stability in the government and since it and have a very strong upsurge movement. So overall, the undertone remains bullish, but yes, the valuation is a bit higher, and it is just exit polls. We need to wait for the main outcome that will be happening tomorrow. But overall, the undertone remains bullish, and one should remain intact with their investment in major of their countersign portfolios in equity market. Now, coming to the technical developments in Nifty, the Nifty has seen a very strong V-shaped recovery and has been maintaining the cycle of higher highs, higher lows. So I'm expecting that as it is nearing the zone of higher band of the rising channel, so this can be some kind of tentativeness or consolidation near the zone of 23,000 to 23,400. It is still a very broad range, but this is the immediate range that one can expect in Nifty in the coming period. While Bank Nifty has achieved two milestones, one 50,000 mark, and it has just was about to touch the 51,000 mark as well. So Bank Nifty is also very strong, and I expect that economy being the backbone of our nation with the very strong GDP number that we have came last week. So I'm expecting that there can be a strong upsurge movement still left in the counter, but one still have to maintain the pragmatic approach. One should not become very much aggressive after such kind of move, and need to have very exclusivity with the stock selection, specifically if one is entering the market at current levels. But for those who are having their equities in their portfolio, they do not have to worry anything. I expect that in the coming long-term perspective, our market is going to have explode from short to medium to long-term perspective.
Absolutely. But speaking of the questions that we've got several that have come in already. Just a quick reminder, if you're tuning in, you can send your questions to us on the WhatsApp number that you're seeing on the screen right now. The first question I will take is a broad-based question. I think it'll help quite a few of our viewers today. Thomas is asking, which stocks should I buy for the short term? And this is for you specifically, Osho. Are there still opportunities to be had right now, and which stocks would you pick from a short-term perspective?
See, from short-term perspective, there are many counters which are still looking very positive and are having very strong technical developments. For example, the financial space is looking very progressive for the time being. Many counters have given a fresh breakout, like Muthoot Finance and Cholamandalam Investment is also looking very positive. These two counters, one can even look to accumulate at current levels from short to medium term perspective. For Chola Finance, it is hovering around the zone of 1280, and it is the level where one should try to accumulate. On the higher end, I am expecting the target of nearly 1340 to 1360 in short term perspective.
All right. The next question is on GAIL, and this is a question from Shubhendu. He's said that he wants to know whether he should buy GAIL at this current market price for the next 1 to 2 years. What's the view on this one, Lancelot, based on the fundamentals? It's up as much as 7.7% in trade today.
Yeah, I know the business model of GAIL actually will grow significantly over the next 2 years. But if you look at, how the stock has performed in maybe the last 6 months, you'll find that valuations have been, relatively stretched. And then considering that, it has already given such high returns, even though you will get, returns, the stock could probably go under a period of consolidation till the growth in earnings then make the valuations reasonable. But that could take another, 12 months for it to happen, because at the end of the day, it is a commodity stock. It is subject to, commodity prices. Their business model does get impacted by high prices both on the raw material side as well as on their the controls on the output side. So one has to be a little cautious. If you want to make money, you have to wait for a correction and then buy into the stock.
All right, wait for a level to buy. The next question is a short-term query on IOB, Indian Overseas Bank, and this is another stock that is gaining quite considerably in trade today, over 7%. We've got Manish from Mumbai who's bought at levels of 41. Attractive buy price, Osho. What should his strategy be in the short term? Should he hold on for more gains or should he book some profits?
Looking at the technical developments, this counter has seen a very strong up move from the 50% retracement of the rally that we have seen from the zone of 40 towards 82 levels. So I'm expecting that from here onwards, there is still very strong room pending in this counter. On the higher end, I'm expecting a target of nearly 78 as very short-term perspective. And once it surpasses the zone of 78, then it has the potential to retest the swing high of 83.5, 84 levels. So if you are having positions, stay intact with your investment and wait for another 10 to 15 odd points of move in this counter.
All right, hold is the view on IOB. The next one's on Kotak Mahindra Bank. And if anything, I think a lot of people have had quite a bit of patience with this particular bank. It's up as much as 2.4%. The question is from Fanindra. He's writing in from Hyderabad and he's asking, so he's saying that he's bought a few shares of Kotak Bank and he wants to increase it. Should he do so today, though? Lancelot, it's a bit of a disappointment for those that have held for a long period of time. If I'm not mistaken, the 3 years performance has not been particularly stellar, nothing to write home about. Would you suggest getting into this one, or would you say that there are other opportunities in the banking space?
Well, I think, Kotak Bank at this price does offer value as well as an opportunity to get much higher returns. Because if you look at the bank per se, they are in a position where they are sort of restructuring their management. The business model is getting a little bit fine-tuned. And, with all the past things now, they are over all the issues that they have in the past. I think that they will get back to, growth in a couple of maybe months and maybe next quarter, we should see some improved performance. Because whatever issues were there with RBI, etc., they will be sorting them out over the next 6 months, and then they would get back to a growth path. So, given that valuations are reasonable for this kind of a franchise, it is a high growth stock, very well managed company, and with very fairly low NPAs. Net interest margins are attractive. So one should really look at accumulating the stock during this period, because once the turnaround begins to show in the financials, then you'll start seeing the stock getting re-rated, and that's when you will get your increased returns.
Fair point. I want to talk about Cummins India, and we've got a viewer, Sachin, who's bought at about 5% lower than the current market price. It's about 3.7% higher today. If we're talking about the short-term perspective, 3 to 6 months or thereabouts, Osho, what should be the key levels to watch and what should the strategy be?
See, overall, the capital goods segment is still having some pace, and I'm expecting that the momentum should continue in the short-term period on the higher end, although there is no very much aggressive target left in Cummins India, looking at the vertical rally that it has seen. So on the down front, I am expecting a very strong support near the zone of 3,400, breaching which it might plunge towards the zone of 3,250 to 3,280 from short-term perspective. But on the higher end, there can be a kind of a reversal that can be seen. And on the higher end, I'm expecting a target of nearly 3,900, 3,850 to 3,900 for very short-term perspective. But one needs to have a very strong, keep a very strong stop loss for this counter of 3,400 if the view is for short-term.
Bandhan Bank is the next counter that we're talking about. Mohit as well as Amar Baweja have questions on this. Amar has bought at levels of 207 and Mohit has bought at levels of 187. Both of them, I think, have a slightly longer term outlook on the stock. Lancelot, this is a bank that is, waded into some trouble in terms of the operations and still trying to figure out how things are going, right? What would you suggest are the fundamental factors to watch with regard to Bandhan, and should you hold on to this investment?
Has predominantly been a microfinance focused bank or focused on small loans and small businesses. And that area is an area which, with rising interest rates, you're likely to see higher NPAs going forward and collections improving. Plus, with the high cost of borrowing, the net interest margins could be under pressure. So there are a host of challenges for Bandhan Bank, and given that valuations are have been stretched at the moment because they've been quite volatile, but one can definitely look at an alternative to Bandhan Bank. Maybe an HDFC Bank offers you a better opportunity because valuations are similar. At the same time, you get into a better quality asset. So one can definitely look at switching out from Bandhan and into an HDFC Bank.
HDFC Bank, it's finally doing something in trade today. And on that note, in fact, it's up as much as 2%, but off the high point of the day. We have to slip into a quick break. Viewers will be back on the other side to take more of your questions, so do stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Ask Profit, and we are in the midst of taking all of your questions. The next one I will take is slightly broad-based. This is from Vineet. He's writing in from Goa, and he's asking, what should so he's saying the small investor, what should a small investor do? But he's got a very short-term time frame. He's asking whether, based on the results tomorrow, he can look at stocks like NHPC or IRFC from the perspective of the next 10 days and look to make a profit. Osho, tough to call, right? We've seen significant moves in these stocks. What would you recommend that he do?
See, for NHPC, there will be some kind of volatility that can be seen, but overall the structure is very positive. So on the lower end, 108 and 106 should be acting as a very strong support zone. Until it sustains above these levels, one should not be very much worried in these counters. But as he needs a kind of a BTST kind of a situation in NHPC, so I will recommend to have this call, but with a stop loss of 106. In the coming period, one can expect a target of nearly 118 to 125 in very short-term perspective.
All right. Coming back to you on Angel One, this is a stock that Puneet Saxena from Ghaziabad has bought at levels of 2605. Should he add, hold or sell with a 3-month time horizon? What are the key levels or targets that you would set for this particular stock, Osho?
See, for me, coming from the same company, I cannot comment on the technical view for Angel One.
Apologies, I completely forgot. Then Landslide, I know that 3 months would be hard for you to predict, but then based on what we're seeing today, and I think a lot of people using some of the discount broking applications would be a little disappointed based on the fact that they've seen glitches on a day when the market has done incredibly well. Do you think that consolidation will take place, that there will be a dethroning, if you can call it that, of a few brokers that have seen tremendous traction? Angel One, what are the prospects?
So I would think that, Angel One has good prospects going forward because, it has been a leader amongst the brokerage plays. And most of the companies which are moved into technology and, are being driven by technology are seeing good amount of growth and traction. Apart from that, as the volumes will keep growing, as our market keeps getting deeper and more people start getting attracted to the market, and as valuations go up, the volumes keep rising, and that augurs well for brokerage companies. And Angel One, having a significant market share, is poised to benefit from this growth over the next 2 to 3 years. So I think even from a valuation perspective, it's reasonably priced, considering that you are going to see over the next 3 to 5 years significant growth in the markets as well as in volumes. So one can stay invested or even look at accumulating the stock for a long-term appreciation.
And look at the potential, right? Because Lancelot, you're saying this despite doubling over the last 12 months, that it is still something that you can buy. The next question is from Alex. He's writing in from Dharmapuri in Tamil Nadu, and he's asking about Indian hotels, which he has bought at an average price of 326. Should he continue to hold, or should he book profits at this juncture, and healthy profits at that, right? Osho, what should he do?
See, overall, technically, this counter still looks very positive to me. It has given or on the verge of giving a sloping trend line breakout around the zone of 580-85. So I'm expecting that still room is pending for a higher targets of nearly 620 in a very short-term perspective. So one should definitely try to hold this counter, but with a strict stop loss of nearly 545 for short-term view.
Okay, fair point. Okay, this is a bit of a tough question. I'm going back to you, Osho. Shashwat Singh is asking, is this the right time to do option trading now as the market is seeing significant volatility? Incidentally, the VIX has come off quite substantially. That is one measure, of course, of volatility. What would you say, though, at this juncture? Would you say wait before you take any bets?
See, overall, our market has already seen a very drastic upsurge in today's session. So there can be some kind of cool off or correction that can be seen. So looking at the overall IVs are expected to cool off after tomorrow's trading session. So one should definitely wait for one more session for having an approach as a fresh option buyer, because tomorrow we can see some kind of extra volatility in the market. So for the time being, just for 1-2 trading sessions, one should remain sidelines from the option trading, but maintain exclusivity with the counters which have higher liquidity, have better technical developments. So better to focus on those counters which are looking very positive and have a decent premium. The IVs are not very much spiked because of the short-term volatility.
Irshad Hussain is writing in on YouTube, and he's asking about Adani Power. Should he hold or sell? Lancelot, any view on this? This is a counter that has done incredibly well over the last year or so, or 16 months. I was looking at the gains. If I'm not mistaken, we're talking about a 200% increase over the last 16 months or so.
I think, because of this high level of gains, you are seeing that valuations have really gone through the roof, and it's very difficult for you to buy into this stock at this point in time. But I think if you are already invested and you're wanting to take a call whether to remain invested, you could look at continuing to hold, because the momentum continues to be very strong for this counter, and you could see maybe work with a trailing stop loss and take the benefit of the upside. But on the basis of valuations, looks very expensive to buy at this point in time, so one should just stay away.
The next question I'm taking is on Apollo Hospital, and Naman from Delhi is asking why it's underperforming despite relatively underperforming. It's gaining only about 0.5% today in a market that is seeing broad-based gains. Lancelot, you want to comment on the fundamentals?
So I think it is in a good space. There has been consolidation happening in the hospital space. Apollo Hospital has, moved into the pharmacy space, which is also an area where they're trying to build in, some kind of growth and also de-risk their entire business model. They've also been taking hospitals on management contracts, which is reducing the kind of capital they have to allocate to getting in or increasing their capacity. So all in all, it is a good long-term, investment option and reasonably valued at this point in time. definitely maybe slightly higher than its, let's say, average trading, 5-year average. But if one looks at the kind of growth potential that you would see over the next 3 to 5 years, one can definitely look at, adding this stock in the portfolio on declines.
Point. Vivek from Hyderabad is asking about SBI cards, which he has bought at an average price of 817. He's got a 6-month time frame, and he's asking whether he should average at this current price. Osho, what's the view on the charts?
See, overall, this counter is into a very strong corrective phase. There is no recouping or resurgence from the lower levels. Currently hovering at a very strong support because 690, 700 odd zone has seen a very strong cushioning in the recent period. But as of now, I won't expect averaging out this counter, because in such kind of a market, if a counter is not performing, better to stay away from such counters. While on the higher end, if someone is holding and want to stay in this counter, better to average this counter above the zone of 760. Once it surpasses the zone of 760, then we can see some kind of traction. But as of now, it is better. It will be better to stay away from SBI cards.
Okay, stay away from SBI cards. That brings us, unfortunately, to the end of this particular edition of Ask Profit. I wish we had more time. Thank you so much, Lancelot, as well as Osho, for taking the time and for answering all the questions that you did. Viewers, we've tried to accommodate as many questions as possible today, but we will be back tomorrow to take more of your questions. I hope that the questions that were answered today benefited you, even if your specific question wasn't answered. There's lots coming up over the course of the day, and you'll find a lot of action right here on NDTV Profit.
4 जून जैसा आपने कहा, जिस दिन चुनाव का नतीजा आएगा, आप उस हफ्ते भर में देखना कि यानी भारत का स्टॉक मार्केट के लिए उसके सारे जो उनके प्रोग्रामिंग के जो प्रोग्रामिंग वाले सारे उनके थक जाएंगे।
मैं फिर से आपके चैनल पर कहना चाहता हूं, 4 तारीख को नरेंद्र मोदी फिर से प्रधानमंत्री बनने जा रहे हैं। हम 400 पार करेंगे और स्थिर सरकार आने वाली है और शेयर मार्केट भी बढ़ने वाला है।
Hello and welcome. This is Hot Money. I am Agam Vakil, and in this show we take you through all that is buzzing in trade, and it is the market which is in fact advancing. Well, earlier on in the session it made a new life high on an intraday basis. We're still sitting on substantial gains as far as the Nifty is concerned, as far as the Bank Nifty is concerned. In fact, the Bank Nifty will doing a little bit of a catch up, coming as far as with respect to the Nifty, of course, and both of them sitting pretty with gains of over 3.5%. In a year you're likely to have maybe 1 or 2 such days when the indices gain so very much, and well, today is one of them. Well, of course, needless to say that the action is not over yet, because we in fact are waiting for the outcome of the general elections to come through tomorrow. So it's going to be another, perhaps a choppy day. Well, hopefully for the bulls at least, it will be another day of green, another day of advances. What we're seeing right now is the Nifty has come off day's lows, and that day low was also considerably higher than the previous trading session. But of course, on an intraday basis, it's also made a high of around 23,840 odd. We're still a good amount away from there. Again, 24,000 is something that everyone is keeping an eye on, at least, as far as that's concerned. All said and done, it's a really, really good day of trade. Perhaps, one of the best days of trade, at least as far as this year is concerned. And what's really surprising is that well ahead of the outcome of the general election, and for the second straight session, we are actually looking at a decline in your India volatility index. This, to a certain extent, is a positive, because, it just indicates that there's going to be less volatility. There's a little bit more certainty with respect to the outcome of the general election, which, of course, will only be out tomorrow. But this is, of course, the perception of the market. The fear gauge is indicating reduction in fear. It's India Wix down by around 18.5%. Very quickly, to take a look at where we have that pull and push as far as your key indices are concerned, the Nifty specifically, because it is essentially the Nifty which is outperforming the broader markets as well. If you consider something like the small cap index, that's up around 2%, the mid cap index is up around 2.7%, but the Nifty is up 3%, and the bank Nifty, of course, is up around 4%. So the key benchmarks are at the moment and today outperforming. It's going to be a wait and watch whether or not we actually see a turnaround with respect to FII flows as well here on, but that's something that we will continue to give you an eye on. In terms of contribution of the Nifty, of course, that's your advanced decline ratio. So for 3 gainers, just 1 decline. And if for contributions, of course, you have Reliance Industries, ICICI Bank, and L&T. You just have 3 or 4 losers, and they're all just about marginally in the red. But on that note, let's talk about all the themes and sectors that we're going to address today. So we're talking about the Adani Group companies. We're talking about auto sales and how that's panned out for the month of May. We're also considering the monthly updates for something like a Coal India and NMDC. REC and PFC are just, on the parade, charging up ahead. And we have an update on NTPC. Along with that, we're also considering the outlook for PSU banks. And to talk to us about that, we are in conversation with Devash Vakil, Deputy Head of Retail Research at HDFC Securities. Devash, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining in. Devash, before I come to you, let me take up the first theme of today for us. And, I will be addressing what's happening with the Adani Group stocks. So Adani Enterprises and Adani Ports are the biggest gainers in today's day of trade on the Nifty 50. Adani Ports is up around 11%, Adani Enterprises is up around 6 to 7% as well. If you just move beyond the indices, there are plenty of other Adani Group companies which are also buzzing and in fact advancing even more. There's a significant outperformance for something like an Adani Power or an Adani Green as well. Among the latest that we have, of course, that a lot has changed. And if you take the market capitalization of the entire group, it has now surpassed and been above the market cap of what it was back during the Hindenburg fall. It has taken about 16 months, a little over that, to recover. And now, once again, the group has an overall market capitalization of over that mark, which had happened back, that decline, which had happened, come through in January of 2023. Now, since then, we also have a lot of positive changes for the group. So we have about $10.8 billion in investments from long-term investors since then. Since then, of course, over the last year, we've seen the group EBITDA move up around 45% at a little less than 83,000 crores. We've seen the group profit move up as much as 71%, grow by 71%, a little over 40,000 crores. Its core infra EBITDA is also well over $8 billion at the moment, and its liquidity has also improved substantially, in fact, sitting just shy of the 60,000 crore mark, and its net debt to EBITDA coming in around 2.5 times, which is also, for the first time. So a lot of factors in playing in favor of the Adani Group companies. But, let's take a view on some of them, perhaps. Devarsh, welcome to the show. Of course, Devarsh, I'm not sure which of these companies are under your coverage, but, your overall view, and if you, in fact, do have any of these companies under your radar.
Right. So, as the exit poll outcome has come, the perception in the market is that this group is close to the current dispensation, and now those fears are over, and that's why we are seeing a rally across the group. We have Adani Port under coverage. In fact, there is a corporate news also. Adani Port is expanding beyond Indian shores, as we know. Gradually, they are trying to increase their business abroad. And today we read in the papers that the Adani Port has signed 30-year deal to operate a terminal at Tanzania's Dar es Salaam port. So that 30-year commissioning has also happened. That is also helping the group. And otherwise, it seems that all these companies which are directly related to the infrastructure sector, large investments they are planning. And since the current political dispensation is likely to continue as per the exit poll, so there is a relief with the investors, and there is increased demand from investors that they would like to participate in the infrastructure growth story of India, and some of the people choose to play it through Adani stocks. So apart from, we have Adani Port under coverage, and it is now beyond our, as today it has surged, it is beyond our yearly targets, but at declines, I would recommend that people can look at Adani Ports. It is one of the, amongst all the group companies, we find valuation comfort here.
Okay. Recommending buying into Adani Ports and declines, of course, and surpassing targets as far as HDFC Securities is concerned. But just a standard disclaimer, NDTV, the channel that you're watching, is a subsidiary of the AMG Media Networks Limited, which is, of course, an Adani Group company. But let's move on and talk about the auto sales coming in for the month of May. Before I take Devarsh's view on the sector, let's get in Puneet to tell us about how the month has gone by. Puneet.
Well, thanks for that. So it is a mixed bag of sorts when we see, certain players doing extremely well. But the interesting part is that we've seen divergent trends within categories as well. So when we look at the two-wheeler makers, we've seen TVS has been one of the key outperformers in this particular space with roughly 12% of sales growth in this particular month. But when you look at the other players such as Hero as well as Eicher Motors, they have both reported a fall in sales. And this is despite, strong rural commentary by Hero MotoCorp in the previous month as well as post results. And for Eicher Motors as well, it is a very surprise fall in their particular sales. They have been clocking roughly 80,000 units per month, and this is a key negative. We've seen the stock is also reacted negatively on the exchange as well. But within, as well as Bajaj Auto, which came out with results this morning, where they reported flat volume. But TVS is one of the key winners in the two-wheeler space. When we move on to the four-wheelers, here there is a clear winner with Mahindra and Mahindra growing a whopping 31% compared to the same time last year. The industry volume has just grown by roughly 4 to 5%. So this is a key outperformer in this particular space. We have seen Tata Motors also, there was expectation of roughly a 4% growth, but it's just grown by roughly 2%. While Maruti is another key negative here. There was expectation of a fall in sales which has come in. The company has said that this was due to the Red Sea crisis, that export volumes were impacted. And another update on Maruti is that they have launched the Swift last month and they have clocked in roughly 40,000 units of volumes. When you look at the commercial vehicle space, here again a divergent trend with Ashok Leyland doing extremely well, growing upwards of roughly around 12%, while we see someone like a Tata Motors having a subdued month both on the passenger vehicle as well as the commercial vehicle space, just growing by 2%. And VECV, now this is a clear outperformer, because there were expectation of roughly a 8% fall in sales, and they was actually grown. When you look at the last segment, which is the tractor segment, again a divergence here with M&M Tractors actually growing roughly 8%, while someone like an Escorts, which is a key competitor, has actually fallen by roughly 6%. Do know that in the previous month, post results also, the company had said that they saw Maharashtra as well as Karnataka being affected for the company, but Mahindra and Mahindra showing growth, strong traction. So overall, we see that certain pockets have done well, but within themselves as well, we have seen key outperformers as well as underperformers in this particular month. Back to you.
Okay, Puneet, thank you so much for getting us that update. Devash, what is your stance on the sector? Well, perhaps names that stand out for you even at this point.
Right. So overall, we have been positive on the auto sector. This year also, the expectation is that from the rural India, demand will come back because of the normal monsoon predictions which we have. So that is likely to help the two-wheeler market and entry-level cars market also. But given the valuation, I think most of the stocks have run up. So I will wait for them to correct. Two stocks, one from the four-wheeler or the PV side, which is still looking attractive, is the Maruti. I think as your colleague pointed out, the Swift launch has been a phenomenal success for them. And given the valuation, I think 13,242 is our target. So it is now near that. So if it comes down, I think Maruti on the four-wheeler side looks interesting to us. We will look at it. From two-wheeler side, I think the competition is going to increase intensely. We had Bajaj Auto and Hero under coverage, and there I think they have gone beyond our targets and our rating is sell or reduce. One stock which I have been pointing out, which eventually become much larger than what it is right now and may replace Bajaj or Hero Moto in the index going forward, is the TVS Motor. So we have a buy rating there. I think 2262 is was our target. Now, since many of these stocks have run up, so they have achieved our yearly targets or very close to those targets. So on declines and for a longer term, I think compared to the Bajaj or the Hero Moto, I would put my money on TVS Motors.
Okay, TVS Motor Company it is. Well, Devash, stay with us. We slip into a short break, and on the other side, we get you the balance of that list. Stay tuned in. welcome back. This is Hot Money. Well, we are taking stock of REC and PFC now. Of course, in the latest, we have an update with respect to REC, and where it is suggested that the company has approved raising of around 1.45 lakh crore rupees through bronze, and naturally this will most probably be going towards financing operations going in. We also know that the government has set some very stringent targets with respect to renewable energy, and along with that, REC, which is rural electrification, to a certain extent also has a role to play, keeping in mind several of the government targets, which is why you naturally will have the deployment capital coming through. For several reasons, we have seen a very strong year gone by for REC as well as PFC. PFC, of course, being REC's parent company and is also in a similar business. But today is a day where we are seeing a surge. To a certain extent, some may argue that this is also a sentimental boost coming in. Devarsh, what is your opinion on both these companies going in? Any view here?
So they have had a phenomenal run, as you mentioned. What market is now factoring in is that they will have a even further momentum towards their disbursement. The loan asset growth has been phenomenal, and market is expecting that this pace will continue. I personally feel that the market is factoring in little higher valuation or a rich valuation now. We would like it to. We have seen the past of these companies, and compared to their historical averages, I think that it is richly valued. I will wait for the correction. The market is right now assuming that hardly there will be any credit cost despite increasing the coverage across various fields, and they are assuming very low haircut. I would like these numbers to first come into the quarterly numbers and see for myself before committing new capital. So we were bullish on such financials, but the recent rally has made them quite rich and expensive. So I would not commit a new capital to these REC PFC right now.
Sure, fair enough. Of course, heavy valuations that could be, one challenge, but otherwise a fundamentally steady story. But from there on, let's move on and talk about NMDC and Coal India. Now, we've had monthly updates from both these companies as well in terms of production and sales. Let's get in Kanika to understand better how things have fared here. Kanika.
Right, so first up is Coal India. Now, its May coal production is up by almost 7.5% year on year, while its offtake is up almost 7.2% year on year. Now, if I talk about offtake, ECL, which is Eastern Coalfields Limited, it was up 31% year on year, and CCL, which is Central Coalfields, a subsidiary of Coal India, it contributed in the second place and rose by almost 12% year on year. Now, coming to production, the Northeastern Coalfields, they contributed the most and rose by almost 90% year on year, and the company has given guidance for FY25 by setting a target to produce 838 million tons of coal, of which 79% will be supplied to the power sector alone, while the balance will be supplied to the non-regulated sector. Now, as per sales volume, the FY25 guidance stands at 811 million tons, and up to May 2024, the company has achieved 126 million tons of production compared to required 140 million tons, which is as per the monthly production run rate. Now, second up is NMDC. Its May production is down 37% year on year, which is mainly led by a fall in production in Chhattisgarh mines by almost 51%. Now, May sales are also down 22% year on year, and in FY24, the full year production fell short of the guidance of 47 to 49 million tons and was impacted by lower production and offtake at Karnataka mines. The volume guidance is for FY25 is given at 50 million tons, and up to May 2024 year to date, 5.8 million tons has been achieved, which is way below the required monthly production run rate. And as per Motilal Oswal, in FY25, incremental 2 million tons is likely to be produced from Karnataka and 3 million tons is likely to be produced from Chhattisgarh mines. It is important to know that NMDC has taken 2 price hikes in Q1 of FY25, which could improve its average selling prices and earnings from here on. The management has also said that it is largely in line with landed prices. Back to you.
Right, Kanika, thank you so much for getting us all those details and insights. Devash, anything that stands out for you in terms of Coal India or NMDC going forward?
Right. So we actually have recommended Coal India as one of our pick of the months recently, in the beginning of the May month. We know Coal India is the single largest coal producer in the world.